Welcome to another episode of Shiz Happens. I'm your host, Shizman, and to my left, the Almanac, aka Hassan Sheikh. Hi, Hassan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome as always. And to my right, I have a very special guest, a very elusive guest. It's been a long time. We really appreciate you joining us. Is Brother Saad. So, Hassan, if you want to say any further introductions to yourself to excite the audience, as they can see in your beautiful smile.
No, I think you guys are going to enjoy the episode. We have a lot of things to talk about. Definitely stuff that affects the community. But yeah, stick around and see what Brother Saad has to offer here.
Yes, beautiful. Brother Saad, any quick thoughts before we get into it?
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh, or welcome. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. So first of all, I asked to be called Brother Saad. I know some people might be like, wow, why are they calling him brother? That's like my title. I think it may even be official on my birth certificate. May not yet. I have to do that. Right. Yeah, it's nice to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So,
yeah, it's kind of a switch from basketball predictions. I think all of ours were incorrect. But
so now we're doing UFC predictions instead, right?
Yeah.
Just pick the Muslims.
That's usually how it works.
Right. And before we start diving into the topics, we should probably suggest a trigger warning for some of the topics that deal with pornography. Maybe domestic abuse or divorce, adultery, that type of stuff. So just want to give you a bit of a heads up for those who are watching or listening.
So we're not talking about UFC?
No, we are not.
Okay,
not at this time. Maybe connecting UFC later. But yeah, as he's mentioned, we're just going to be talking about a lot of adult content. So those who are listening, just be aware. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully it benefits you. So we'll get right into it. The subject to talk about, the first of multiple ones is online adult content. So what are your thoughts on that? I'll start with you, Hassan. How does it affect, people that you may know? What are your thoughts on it personally, good or bad? And then we'll let Brother Saad talk.
Yeah, well, I'm no expert on it, but yeah, no, this is definitely something that kind of, I would say, cripples society. I know that if you go on YouTube or Reddit or any of these places, I think people are more freely talking about it than when we were growing up, right? Mm-hmm. In the 90s, it was just such a taboo topic. You couldn't discuss it with anyone, even with your friends. I knew growing up where I was in, Chicago public schools, there would just be some kids who brought it over in class, and it was just like this. Oh, well, what do you have? No way. And then also, I remember in sixth grade, I had a friend. He was adopted. His parents were a lot older, and they would just give him whatever he wanted. So he had all those things in his room. So like my friends, we'd always go over, and they're all like looking at it and stuff, or he'd have the videos, and we're just, it was, you're like 12, 13. Yeah. So it was kind of a new thing, but now it's obviously more open. Kids have phones. It's highly accessible. And I think those are just some concerns. Obviously I have thoughts on the consumption of it, where I guess what the science says versus the moral/religious aspect of it, which we'll probably dive into. But yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
Real quick, just to add, and you talk about accessibility, I was just smirking, and we grew up similar school systems, but something you might not have mentioned, you're talking about parents, the access to this. One of the biggest access that we may have had is going to the convenience stores. If you guys remember, you go to the convenience stores, you're fake buying the piece of gum because behind the counter is those magazines and those adult contents. That was how people would access it, right?
Yeah, or the video store.
Yeah, video store, of course. But you pretend to look at a video, but you're trying to peek in through those cowboy doors.
Yeah, they had the curtains.
The curtains, yeah. But that was that, and today the accessibility is just out of control. So
there was like a level of shame.
Yes.
Like when you went there, like you walk into 7-Eleven, and like the first aisle, and it was all covered. It would just say like explicit content or over 18 or something like that.
Yep.
Then if you walked down the aisle, you couldn't see much other than a title. And if you went down the aisle, everyone would look at you. Or if you went to like West Coast Video, and then like in the back, there's like curtain room, and people don't know what was back. Like
Uncle's coming out.
Yeah. And so there was an element of shame with it. But it's become so normalized now. Mm-hmm. And when it's become normalized, it's become much more common and not only accessible, but people don't bat an eye in it anymore.
No, yeah, it's openly discussed. It's also about the sexual freedom, liberation, whatever. And back then, the reason it was covered, during Hugh Hefner and Playboy, there was all these obscenity laws with him and Larry Flint and Hustler. And it was everything was about like free speech back then. That's how they couched it, maybe from a liberal perspective. And that's why, like, hey, you could you could show the magazines, and then it got to, okay, well, we'll compromise on covering it with, that shield so you don't see everything. And so that's kind of how it started, where it was just more open. It was more accepted, but it was still very taboo. Like, you couldn't consume it unless you went there and physically purchased something, and then came home. Like, my brother, I remember his friend's dad had a collection.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they used to have back then, like collections, right?
Yeah.
He would bring it or
Al
whatever.
Bundy.
Yeah, Al Bundy. So so the accessibility is a huge factor. Obviously, in society today, everything's like oversexed, in my opinion. The way the artists are, the acting, the movies. I mean, it was a lot different than when we were growing up with. You had like Saved by the Bell, right? It was a very innocuous teen type show. Now every teen's like depressed and doing drugs, and God knows. I'm like, where are the teachers?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned, because one of the first exposures I had to it being in the Muslim community was one of a youth reached out to me. His father is on the board of a specific masjid, not in Chicagoland area, not in Illinois. And I had given a talk somewhere, and he reached out and he was saying that, there's like this dissonance. My father's a board member, but in his closet is this, and then mom and dad be fighting. And so it has been there. And I'm not trying to blame the uncles or anything, but can you look up what is what the actual word, the P word? What is the actual definition of that?
Okay.
Yeah, because, and then I'm gonna ask you for a couple more definitions as well. It's nice to have a guy who is the almanac. And the reason I'm saying that is because I want to see, and if you even pass your folks, I want to see what the if there is a
there isn't. All it says is television programs, magazines, books, etc., that are regarded as emphasizing the sensuous or sensational aspects of non-sexual subject and stimulating a compulsive interest in their audience. It's funny because the Supreme Court, during one of those cases, I remember, I think it was Potter Stewart, said, "I don't know what corn is, but I know it when I see it." Like, so he couldn't really define it as well.
Crazy.
But now, if you look at that, just like if you take a step back from that statement, what we saw on magazines before that we would have to look away from then would now be like PG.
Yeah,
it's not even
of course.
PG-13, it's not even NC-17, it's just
Yes.
PG. And now what's considered to be common consumption at the as a cover would have been probably the content of those magazines. Because the magazines may have been explicit, but were not necessarily sexually explicit as we think of it today. Back then, like if we saw it now, it's just almost like an underwear commercial, underwear ad.
Yeah.
But it's really changed, and that definition now makes sense, because if you're going to not, with things changing so much, people can defend this. Well, I'm not seeing anything. I'm not really watching anything. It's just a person. There's state of undress, but everyone dresses the same way out here as well. Then when you go to the next level, the quote unquote rated X stuff. Now, rated X back then would have been what's normally on the covers today, and it's changing. And even if you look at, I forgot what the paintings on the walls of old buildings, what they're called, but if you look at those pictures in in Rome, etc.,
Well, like the reliefs.
yeah, they would actually be very
Yes.
explicit. So it's not something that's common to today. It's from before as well.
Yes.
I want to comment on something funny back in the day. It would be like the Sears newspaper would come in, and the back page would have the lingerie.
Mhm.
Or I'm walking around Sears, or like they call it Target and Walmart now, but you're trying to sneak through the lingerie section.
Yeah.
So it's like exposure, right?
Yeah.
There's no shame. If you go to a more righteous or more more shameful countries, like they won't have that. Like in Saudi, they won't have that out and about. You'll have to go out of your way to kind of see it or whatever. So there was more shame in the past.
Yeah, there's a lot more modesty, a lot more shame. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on your own on the Sears thing.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right.
It wasn't me. It was just I found it. Okay.
But that, I guess, gets into the whole topic of, if you look at the science and the data, right? Is there really measurable data for this stuff, right? Because who, first of all, is going to report this stuff? But I think from what I've read and what people have been asked, it comes to a point of, if you feel like it's morally reprehensible, or if you've been raised like we have, that it's wrong. Obviously, you go to the masjid or churches, that if it's wrong, and then you watch it, you feel the guilt, the shame.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's studies that show that if you have none of that and you watch it just for entertainment, like, you can live a pretty normal life.
Wow.
I think it's when it's the morally reprehensible aspect of it that you're taught as a young kid, then it becomes a big problem because you're constantly fighting that battle. And the interesting thing today, which is good, is that there is more content also on YouTube and Reddit or wherever you have it, where people are openly, freely talking about their problems with it,
Yeah,
the how it has been an addiction and an affliction in their life. So, as someone who's in the community quite a bit, is this one of the biggest topics that or issues that kind of that you're confronted with?
Yeah, I mean, so let's look at it from the perspective of secularism. Secularism is removing the divine. You remove God from the picture. And what is the common nomenclature now in society? Separation of church and state. Human beings can't do that. So when you do, it causes a dissonance. Now, there always may be a percentage, like you say, those individuals don't suffer from guilt or suffer from any type of affliction because of this double life that they're living. But most do. Even if they're not religious, there is some moral reality. If not, then kids would not blush or feel shame when they first see a lingerie picture or ad when they were younger, because it would be normal to them, but it's not normal. It's abnormal for them to see that type of exposure. So what's happening in our society, within the religious sphere, and I think this applies to many religions as well, not just Islam. And I think if you were to bring in a religious leader from the Christian faith or from any other faith-based community, they would say that you finally have an active push to try to stop this because it's harming marriages.
Wow.
It's harming marriages a lot. And it's harming marriages physically. Like intimacy is out the window for many people as a result, because they're seeing on this content something they're trying to replicate or hope to replicate within their own intimate lives, which you have an actor and actress, or nowadays actors or actresses, like who are engaging in really what's a script.
Mm-hmm. It's not real life.
It's not real.
That's not how people really.
And so now there's that disconnect, or there's the disconnect of a person looking at his or her spouse and recognizing that they don't look the same way. And no one's paying your spouse $2 million to try. Yeah, and the comparison comes forth to try to keep in shape. There's a lot of things that occur. There's the personal guilt, there's the personal shame, and shame is not a bad thing. I know people talk about shame as a bad thing. Controlled shame is not a bad thing. It's something that's been instilled within us, within society. When you get pulled over, how come so many people when they get pulled over, they put on their hazards because they want to make it seem like they're being helped by the police officer rather than being actually pulled over? Because you don't need your hazards on when the cop is there. The cop is your hazard at that moment.
Lights,
but you put it in hopes that maybe they'll just think that I had a flat tire or something. Shame it's a positive thing if it's not negatively used, if it's not weaponized. But we're seeing a lot of youth, a lot of adults who are talking about this now. Our generation has been hit hard. The generation afterwards has been hit with more quantity, but I don't know if it's been hit as hard, because we almost walk that fine line of having shame as a consistent part of our lifestyle and then now hiding something. Whereas I think youth today, they've normalized it so much that it's not as shameful, but they're seeing other effects from it.
Regarding the youth, I was going to ask you about that. And we all talked about the past, the adults, our age, older, younger. But the youth you brought up, how does it affect them? And I think you kind of touched on that, because there's no relationship, right? Youth usually aren't married unless they have a boyfriend or girlfriend. But more so, accessibility. What are we doing to block it, save ourselves, the Wi-Fi control, our parents checking phones? What are any thoughts on that, either of you?
So there's a couple things. Number one, nowadays people have access to everything.
Yeah.
And it's very dangerous. We are what we eat, and this is consumption. It's a form of consumption. From the Islamic perspective, from the spiritual perspective, the heart is the center of all guidance. It's what dictates what we do. In Quran, Allah mentions, or God says in the Muslim Holy Scripture, "Lahum qulub la yafqahuna biha." They have hearts, but they can't discern or understand by it. And we often think as the mind is the cognitive, the aql, the mind is a cognitive guide. We actually say the heart paired with the mind, but the heart is like the main driver. So now the heart is consuming. So we say these are all pathways. Touch is a pathway, senses, smell, hearing, taste, vision. It's all pathways. And if someone said that's not true, then why even in our society, when we were younger, like Saved by the Bell or things like that, oh, they're playing our song. What's our song mean? Like you heard something, it brings you back to your first date.
Wow.
It brings you back to your first date, and it reminds you. Like I remember when we first got married, my wife and I went to California the week after we got married, and her sister had advised her, when you're there, buy a perfume and just put it on regularly. Don't say anything about it. Months later, don't wear it for months afterwards.
Oh, genius.
And then put it on later. So I remember one day I just walked into our apartment after work, like, it smells like California in here. She's like, I can't believe it worked, because all of it goes into a central base, like a database. Now, these images are all going into a database. When you have a database, you have to act on it. It doesn't just sit there. There's some action that has to take place. Do we get blocked for using the M word? Self-stimulation? Is that a blocked term?
Don't think so.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? Should I just avoid it?
Um,
I know we're going to say pornography or pornography or adult content, but
I think you're fine.
so masturbation, you can say that. That's one of the outlets by which people who are not married, and for us, marriage is, we don't have dating within our religion, and so they need an outlet. You have all the stimulation. What are you supposed to do? Just sit within your system? So that becomes an outlet. That outlet also itself brings a lot of, for some people, shame, a lot of questions. I've seen a lot of physical results. Like, what I mean by that is that there are people who've come to me and they've said that, look, Saad, I cannot perform in the bedroom. I cannot be open. I cannot be intimate with my spouse because for 10 years, 7 years, I've been so accustomed to that act after watching that I'm in that act. And I know this is explicit, so again, we had a trigger warning in the beginning, but it's important for people to know, married couples, people our age, people younger, people older. If for 10 years you're practicing an act on multiple days a week or whatever the case may be to quickly climax, now you get to the bedroom and you can't maintain for more than a minute. Of course, you've trained your body for that long period of time to do this. So there's a lot of effects.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so you're creating these neural pathways
Exactly,
that
yes.
you need to now create newer ones to unblock that one and just let those go away.
Yeah, it takes time.
It does
you
take
built
time.
the wrong one already. You said 10 years. It's too hard to just erase.
Right.
But it does get erased.
Exactly.
I've seen people successfully erase it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. That's great.
Because like to do something for 10 years that I guess is harming you, to then think that within a few months it'll go away is pretty tough, right?
Yeah.
So not quitting cold turkey, like it's not like smoking, and it probably is like smoking or drinking. Those are very difficult to do cold turkey.
Yes.
What do you tell them to do, like besides cutting it off? Because like I said, some people report neutral or positive effects off of it. Obviously, if it becomes a compulsive behavior where you can't even like do your job or study, or it's very hard for you to like read a book without thinking about it. What happens in that scenario?
So the scenario with the masturbation as well?
Yeah,
or just,
sure.
Well, anything obsessive is problematic. I mean, for us, it's haram anyway. I know there's some scholarly debate. I'm not getting into that. But what do you do? So cold turkey is always the best.
Wow.
But no one can guarantee that will happen. And so people should know that they should not fault themselves if they cannot leave something cold turkey. Because human nature, let's take something as, so let's not talk about corn. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about something like eating bad foods. I'm a trainer part-time, right? So eating poor choices. I don't say bad because there's a moral element. Poor choices of eating. If someone consumes a lot of dessert, or a lot of pizza, whatever the case may be, and they say, I'm going to leave a cold turkey, what's the natural inclination after a few days?
What you resist persists.
Yeah, exactly. So now you say, okay, instead of stopping it every day, I will every third or fourth day allow myself to have it. Or what I do is I say at the end of the day, if I've met my macros and I'm within my calories, I'll let myself have some dessert. I will. And so that allows me to fight that urge. So I tell youth and adults as well that have a calendar. Personal calendar should not be anywhere where people can see it. And then just make a mark for the days you're successful and set a goal. Let's say your goal is 3 days. Now, I'm not giving you permission after the 3 days to do what you're doing, but at least you know you hit that goal. And if you can be 3 days consistent for a few weeks, we're going to aim push it to 4 days, 5 days. Because I would rather see you not relapse and just do things properly, but it'll take some time. People struggle. We've had Sahaba, companions of the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace, who struggled with drinking. And they tried and they fell back. And they tried and they fell back. Any addiction is going to be difficult. The issue with this addiction, similar to alcohol and other things, but this addiction, it's very destructive. It's destructive to society. You know, there's an interesting...
Your family, your wife,
family,
kids, job.
You know, there's a Newsweek article in 2006, I believe, 2008. It was before I traveled overseas. That they interviewed. Prostitutes? Is that what we
Yes, let's keep going.
Okay, so
let's get more vulgar.
They interviewed prostitutes, and they had this whole it was like a 4 or 5 page segment of Newsweek, and it mentioned that the prostitutes themselves reported feeling in more danger ever since pornography. Oh, man, I have to make that out. Corn. Ever since adult content became more proliferated within society.
Yes. Yep.
Because they're seeing all these things. Like, I think there's a Japanese version called kake, which is when you force yourself upon someone. I know we can't say the R word. That's a genre of adult content.
Yeah, the fetishes have gotten a lot more aggressive.
I remember in 2001, I'm a freshman at NIU. It's the Harvard of the Midwest. So I'm a freshman at NIU. In my,
I thought it was UIC.
UIC is more like the Yale. And so Unity Islamic Center.
Yes.
My professor Joe, he had a very long last name, so just call me Professor Dr. Joe. He said he came from the Paperback Grotto, which is like an adult material, adult content store before things were virtual. And he's just like, I was surprised by the sections. There was like man, woman, man, animal. And then I think he was joking, it's like man, appliances. But in books of fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, from over a century ago, over a millennia ago, we have this stuff there, because people had always been drawn to sexual needs and desires, and when they can't control it, then the fetishes take over.
Right.
And I would not even say that it's abnormal to have like a fetish if you don't act upon it. But I guess acting upon it makes it a fetish, right?
Yeah.
You have to. Otherwise, otherwise it'd be more of like a desire.
It's becoming like boring for them, so they have to push the boundaries of it. Actually, there was even something I read where some of these porn stars were accusing the male partners of being too aggressive, of choking and injuring them and things like that. Wow. So it is become pretty crazy. And I think also like younger men have reported watching that that level of the fetish more than before as well.
Yeah.
So it's getting into a place of, and I think you remember there was that kid at UIC who they were reenacting like the 50 Shades of Grey movie.
Oh yeah,
and he overdid the choking or something, and he like got kicked out of school. I don't know if he went to jail or what, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this is some time ago, but yeah, it's getting pretty.
You know what's interesting? I didn't know 50 Shades of Grey was.
Okay.
And I was introduced to it by the Muslim community. I didn't, as someone who's in education, granted, I've only taught, aside from my training, in Muslim schools, but it was only in the Muslim community I got introduced to it, through Muslim marriages, etc. And I didn't know that it was just commonly being read.
Yeah, right.
And so, people always blame, because when we're talking about adult content, it's almost always exclusively the topics about males. But here are a lot of housewives who are reading this.
A housewife wrote it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that becomes their version.
Wasn't it a movie too?
There was a movie.
Yeah, but the book really caught a lot of steam, caught fire within our community, I should say.
Right.
Caught fire within our community.
Like people reading it.
People reading it, yeah.
People reading it, yeah. And it goes back to the whole, like, again, women like to be dominated type thing. This is like their fantasy now. This is how you can get women. You have to...
abuse.
You have to go towards their fantasies, right?
And which is not necessarily true. I think everyone has fantasies is what I was looking for when I said fetish. I appreciate that. It's not true. Everyone has their own ideal. And now you begin to typecast people and typify people. This is where I had a situation where just not only, it was 2 weeks ago, but even before that as well, I've had multiple situations with this, where the question of marital R word came up. Is that even Islamically permissible or acceptable? And the fact that a person would bring that question up shows me about 10, 15, 20 people have that same question. They're too scared to ask. One person was brave enough to come forward. But
sorry, can you explain what that means? You're talking about allowing it to happen?
Yeah, again, it's a fantasy. Right.
Like some random person attacks that person?
No. It's a good question. So what happens is like the husband, wife, they have, so Islamically speaking, for those of you who are not aware, there's certain rights the wife has over the husband, certain rights the husband has over the wife, and certain shared rights. And from the shared rights is to have intimacy. And there are very clear prophetic traditions, hadith, that mention, if anyone's non-Muslim, I'm using these terms on purpose just because it's important to know that Islam is a very human religion. It's a very practical religion. Yeah. We don't just talk about bowing down 5 times a day and move on from it. This is very practical in our approach. And so even conversations about intimacy is present. It's embarrassing for me to talk about this as well, although I don't show it as much anymore. But inside, I'm like, what if my mom or dad watch this? Like, this. Oh, but it's important because the Prophet, upon him be prayers and peace, he mentioned that there is no blameworthy modesty when it comes to seeking knowledge. If you don't ask, then how are you going to find out? And so the situation is that sometimes, so a wife has a right that within every 4 days that the husband is intimate with her. That's her right. In fact, through many Islamic traditions and opinions of scholars, women have more passion and desire than men. But God has given them, God has given them more modesty, so they temper it more. But they have that.
Wow.
Men, they have a little less passion or desire, but they don't have as much modesty. And so that's why it's sometimes untempered or a little more active. So anyway, the husband has a right that when he calls his wife or he approaches her for an intimate need, that I don't know what I can use and not use. Now I'm getting very I don't know what terms I can use without getting blocked on YouTube.
Corn.
Yeah. Well, no, not that need.
I'm joking. No, I just slid that in.
That she should be available.
I see.
And so,
not forced.
so yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And so now
I thought something else. You just go out and
no,
attacks you.
And so no. So in this situation, is that Islamically appropriate that the husband or the wife, but usually the husband, the wife says no, and the husband still forces himself upon his wife?
Oh, wow.
Like there are these things that come forth, and so if you're watching this and this becomes your ideal, then you're going to act upon it in the bedroom. And then, by the way, the people always debate, well, it's the husband's right, and well, the wife has a right too.
Yeah.
And the Prophet ﷺ, why would he say things like, "Don't approach your wife"? He told the men this, like a camel approaches a she camel, rather send messengers. And Sahaba were confused, messengers. And he, upon him be praise and peace, mentioned, like any type of foreplay, kind words, touching, caressing, kissing, to make her incline. And like
smelling good, spray yourself.
Yeah. You look nice.
Walking around with no shirt on.
Yeah,
that's what husband does.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in that, mashallah, that build, but the rest of us, like, we have to actually, the shirt is probably beneficial
for everybody.
But the reality is, or a situation where the Prophet, upon him be praise and peace, mentioned, he's surprised that in the day you treat your wife like a slave, and at night you expect her to be intimate with you. Yeah, so he didn't like this dissonance, which what corn and adult content creates. And then that narration where upon him be praise and peace, the Prophet mentioned that if a man approaches his wife and she says no, then the angels curse her for the remainder of the night. Now, people misunderstand the narration. This is talking about people who weaponize that, not like I'm sick, etc. Like those people who weaponize this,
taking advantage of not doing it.
I'm not doing it. So the husband becomes sort of
desperate,
exactly. But in that situation, why would the Prophet have mentioned that the rest of the night she's cursed? Meaning, if you have to take your knee, just go take it from her. But no, that would have been considered marital aggression. And so, again, I don't know what's to get you guys blocked, etc. And so situations like this, it becomes really important for us to understand everything. So I went a little off topic of what you were saying, but you're seeing this come up. You're seeing what I mentioned before about ED, erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, right. We're just going to get into that. Yeah.
Okay.
The biological effects.
The biological effects is crazy.
There's studies now that show that it could lead to, desensitization down there and erectile dysfunction, right? That you won't be able to perform or last long enough or things like that.
For decades, I've been talking about this privately. Wow. Decades. And people like, there's no connection. And I'm glad there's connection now. But there was connection earlier, but it wasn't as...
They're just trying to hide it.
It was a
multi-billion-dollar
industry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's also this thing where there's on YouTube and Reddit and these places where there's movement called like Nofap, and there's also this movement called semen retention. And the idea is, and the reason it's a little strange for me is because it always ties into that manosphere, right? With the Andrew Tate, and like, okay, you don't need women, like you can just do this, and then they'll come to you, and you're gonna be like this, savage when it comes to any sexual exploration. But Nofap movement, for those who don't understand, is like you don't masturbate or watch porn at all for an unlimited, maybe an indefinite amount of time, and that will, and in that time that you're not doing that, you do things like maybe get your wealth, financial literacy, or explore ways to get wealthy. You work out more, you eat properly, you don't really interact with women. You're kind of in your own zone. You're a lone wolf, and you're going to work out and do all that other stuff. Semen retention is like literally you are not.
Absolutely.
Even if you're having sex with your wife or a partner, you don't release, right?
Wow.
So that is what they're saying is that again, it's all anecdotal because
Yeah.
I don't think there's any measurable evidence with this, but you are retaining your seed, which is this life force that you have between your legs, and you are using that power, transmuting that energy into something more beneficial and fruitful for yourself, like just being a better person or being more productive or determined in your life. So I guess Islamically, if you look at the spiritual aspect of it, it does make a bit sense to do that. However, there's also things on the flip side where someone, if you're playing devil's advocate, could say, well, there was a guy who abstained from masturbating for 90 days. He was starting to experience terrible stomach pains. That goes to the doctor.
It's not the stomach.
Yeah, and then he goes to the doctor, and the doctor like, everything's fine. He's like, when was the last time you released? And he said, oh, it was 90 days. He's like, go home and try it. And then he instantly felt better, right? So there's that health biological factor, right? Like there's no perfect solution is what I'm saying, is that you have to do it by trial and error. It's more of a mental thing of...
Yeah, that latter part I think is going to be very anecdotal because we know ihtilam or wet dreams.
Yes.
That occurs after there's no measurable amount of days that until someone has a wet dream, but a lot of guys have reported that they were not active in the bedroom, etc. That eventually just happens on its own. I think naturally the body, he may have had a whole different situation.
Sure.
Nofap, I can understand. The other one, semen retention.
If it's with your partner, obviously.
So that's not an issue with the partner.
So semen retention
is
not at all. Like even with your partner, the whole idea is like you're just like orgasming mentally, not like physically.
Well,
like you're retaining your seed because that is where it is creating the energy. Every time you release, you are losing some power that you could have transmuted into wealth or attraction.
One of my teachers, he had 2 wives. Rahimullah, he's passed away now. Yeah, lucky. I mean, polygamy, I think people often downplay the importance of polygamy. I know it's going to sound bad. My community might not be happy with me. But the reality is that anything that's within the prophetic message has a benefit. Does everyone have to act upon it? No. But it really bothers me. I know I'm going to tangent. I'll come right back in a moment. It really bothers me when people... like I have a friend, his sister's a second wife. And I know legally in our country, you cannot do it.
Right.
But people have... I hate using the term, but side pieces all the time. But here a person's committed to providing them a home, providing them love, consistency. If they were previously married to have children, take care of their children, all the honorable things, which of course we can't fulfill legally in this society. So I don't think it's problematic. I think people have to take the proper steps. There's conversations should take place between spouses. But that we can save for a different, or it might come back in, but, so he had, 2 wives. He met a wrestler, he was a bodybuilder / wrestler. And that bodybuilder / wrestler, I can't remember if he was Muslim or not Muslim, but he went to shake his hand. He's like, I'm going to really put it to this old man. And then he went to shake his hand, and my teacher kept his hand like this. And the guy went to shake and it just stayed like this. He's like, how do you maintain that strength at this age? And my teacher's teacher was also very, impressed with his strength. And so he said, well, you're very strong. What do you do? And he said, I don't marry. I don't deal with women. My retention.
Yes, right.
And he's like, I have 2 wives. Meaning like this is not what's associated with that. And if you look at it from the prophetic perspective, the Prophet ﷺ, and then when I say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I say upon him be prayers and peace. We always make a little respectful supplication after mentioning the Prophet's name. And we mention people's names as well. Someone who's close to you passed away, we say rahimullah, may God have mercy on him. We always try to make dua for people. When we met, we greeted with salam. We made supplication of peace. At least one of us did. Someone else said, hey, what's up? I'm joking. So anyway, he had multiple wives. Total in his life, he had 11 wives, 9 at one particular point, which I know people are going to have their own issue with. We can do a different episode on that, which is necessary too. He was very strong. He was, some narrations mention he had the strength of 40 men. And some scholars say that means 40 prophets. So the retention part, I don't believe, because if he didn't do it, I don't think it's correct. It might be something that anecdotally people have felt the difference. But if you're talking about a holistic approach, because Imam al-Ghazali Imam al-Ghazali, he was from the Gregorian calendar. He passed away slightly after the turn of the previous millennium. He spoke about there's nothing that softens the heart of a man like intercourse.
Right.
Oh,
So if you're going to be holistic, you don't want to always be the aggressor and someone who's stubborn, etc., around your spouse or your kids. And most men, if you ask them if you have not been intimate, wives can even see it. They can see it like he's just not being as nice, etc. It's a heart. It's from the raqa'iq al-qalb. It softens the heart.
wow.
So there should be a balance. I think the power is necessary. The strength
Of course,
necessary.
there always has to be a balance.
There's be a balance. And so these movements, I feel like they go to an extreme.
They do, because the body likes homeostasis, right? We need
exactly.
to be in the middle somewhere.
Yes.
People think it's the extremes where we live, but
Yeah.
if you do too much corn or you don't touch yourself ever at all or never, then you're just gonna always fall back to something, right?
Yeah.
But also getting back to your point about the strength stuff, I know that some boxers, like I think Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson used to even say they would not, they would abstain for it pre-fight until
it's over.
You know what's really interesting? I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
And definitely there is a calm and a serenity that falls over a person who experiences that. And so I can understand people in the Olympics, they don't let their spouses come into whatever, where they're staying. Okay, I don't doubt that. This is not an extreme. This is going to be before a fight, etc. But the Battle of Badr, which those of you who don't know is the first major, not the first battle, the first major battle within Muslim history, took place the second year after the Prophet, upon whom be praise and peace, migrated to Yathrib, which is what we call Medina, the city of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were very worried about the battle because they were outnumbered 3-1 at least. And right before إِذْ يُغَشِّيكُمُ النُّعَاسِ, Allah says in Quran that they were somewhere standing, somewhere sitting, somewhere on their camelback or horseback, and Allah caused them to fall asleep, and they had ihtilam, they had a wet dream. And so people say, well, isn't that counterintuitive to what we're seeing with athletes? But they were so worried, this brought an ease upon them. Then God caused a rain to fall that cleansed them. And people can say, oh, look at all of your strange rhetoric. It's not rhetoric. And people jump to different conclusions who are haters out there. Oh, look at them. They just became happy with each other's company, etc. Let the haters hate. I mean, whatever. Right. We're completely happy with what our tradition dictates. But it was something that caused them to get relaxation. So how does this fit? And I thought about this for a while. And one of the things I realized that if I don't know the physiology, especially for the women, but if a woman experiences that type of serenity after intercourse, etc., and then sees maybe like she walks outside and sees her child like slip under a car or something, I don't think her body's gonna hold back, because sometimes you see those reports of men couldn't lift but the woman lifted. Yeah. There's something greater that causes you to act. The adrenaline. Yeah, the adrenaline. And so I think for people who have any type of motivation that's external, this might be a conflict. But if it's an internal motivation, like for the woman, the child, or for like people of faith, God, I don't think this matters as much.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's just all thought.
So sure. Now insanity later.
Yeah. And so the other thing, I guess, just not off topic, but do women report this type of problem too? I know.
Oh yeah.
Because it is getting a bit up there statistically.
Women?
Corn, self-stimulation, all that, yeah.
You assume it's usually the default of
yes,
man,
right.
No, you know what? This has really grown since men. Again, women also look at adult content, but since men have become more engaged, because I remember there was one man. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because I don't want to be explicit, but his wife, and this actually happened multiple times, and one's coming to mind right now, caught him. She walked in the house. He was still on the computer, and of course he's very embarrassed, very apologetic, etc. Which at least is nice then, because nowadays they're just open about it.
Yeah,
finish up, clean up.
Yeah, I don't get it. And she was already reporting to me that my husband is not intimate with me, etc. But some of these wives, they either as revenge, they turn to it, or they're like, I'm not getting my own satisfaction, or even if the husband's intimate, for him it's done so quickly, because again, all of that either ED or erectile dysfunction or
too much
premature
adult content.
yeah premature ejaculation occurs, and then the woman is left unsatisfied.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things have led now to women self-stimulation,
Right.
Content, and it's definitely growing.
Yeah.
And I've said this years ago, and if you want to check the counter to see if you want to turn it off, cut it out later, you can. I don't want to get you guys censored or anything. But I remember years back, I said this is going to lead to a rise in homosexuality and like what's now the LGBTQ movement. Someone asked me why. I said, because look, when you're watching pornography, you're not just seeing one person. When we were younger, it was not that we watched it or anything, but we were told that it was just a magazine with a person there, and usually dressed even. But now it's two people. Well, you're focusing on her, but you're also indirectly focusing on him for the guys, and women vice versa. It's initially you see a guy like, we're praying and someone goes to
the backside,
and then you see like they're like
plumbers, what is going plumber's crack.
The crack.
Yeah, and so like it's this weird like sensation of and like sort of still looking, but it's like
Yeah.
And so it's this intrigue and revulsion at the same time.
Yes.
And so I think people, they start seeing the same gender interact with someone who they wish they were with, and then that subconsciously makes them no longer repulsed by this person, and so there's no
curiosity.
There's no barrier of entry. There's no barrier of entry anymore. They're willing to even explore that area. And I've seen women from our Muslim community do this as well.
Wow.
Because they're like, my husband didn't give me much satisfaction, and then they've now what we term to be bisexual. So there are a lot of ramifications. And any of you, if you're watching this and you're in this situation, because I spoke to you before, I am trying to be as general about the circumstances so that no one figures out it's your situation. So I do apologize in advance. I guess not advance, but not retrospective.
Right.
I do apologize. I'm trying not to share any stories explicitly, so anyone will figure out where you're from.
General throughout.
On purpose.
Audience,
I don't
all
want
audience, all people listening.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. So finally, we'll just kind of wrap up here. But is there anything? And I've always wondered this. You mentioned about the Sahaba talking about their trials with alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
Anything regarding this stuff? Because I know that Prophet ﷺ has said, always guard your privates, right? Private area. That's kind of the big thing. And I remember Hamza Yusuf even mentioned one time about corn during, I think, an ISA convention, where the problem with it is that it like emblazons this image in your head that just doesn't leave, and that's
wow.
And so I always thought about that. And I was like, that's pretty crazy. And so, is there anything in the narrations about this specifically, or? So
okay, now adult content. Any type of content. Obviously, media was very different back then. The main media was poetry.
Well, I meant more along the lines of the self-stimulation aspect.
And so that, with media, we do get direction. In the Quran, we're told, يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ, lower your gaze. Because there's an understanding then, and there's an understanding now, because it all comes from God anyway, that the eyes have to be guarded. If they're not guarded, it'll lead to more. It'll definitely lead to more. And so for the men and women, they're given separate commands to lower their gaze, to not look at things they should not look at, people you should not look at. It doesn't mean just she's in a state of undress. Anyone who's walking by is not my wife or not my direct relative, or someone I need to identify. I need to look down. And it is a method of honoring that person. Yeah. If I'm not, we just had the convention this weekend. I went to the bazaar. And sometimes, and by the way, if you're hearing this, anyway, I'm not gonna mention it now. I don't want to embarrass anyone. But sometimes someone will say like, "This is my wife," and then and I look down, and then this is supposed to be a method of honoring her and you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's your wife. I'm not looking at her, and you as a woman, I'm not looking at you. This is honor for you. It's a command. Now, the companions, they struggled with their gaze. We have a narration. Now, can you imagine this? Hajjatul Wada, final Hajj. The Prophet only passed away a few months later. So he had some knowledge, not unseen. Allah had inspired him to know that his life may not be that much longer.
Wow.
And so he's now with the community, and he did Hajj on camelback on purpose. This is the only Hajj he does as a prophet, so people can see everything he's doing. Otherwise, in a sea of 100,000 plus people, you can't necessarily notice one person. So he's on camelback, and he's letting different cousins of his take turn, male cousins, to ride with him because last time he's going to be with family, really. After. So Fadl bin Abbas. Fadl, radiallahu anhu, is the son of Abbas, is the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, upon him be prayers and peace. He's the older brother of Abdullah, who's the Prophet's father. I say radiallahu anhu because I believe he was Muslim. There's 4 opinions. 1, he wasn't Muslim. 2, that he was a Muslim. 3, he was on the monotheistic faith. And 4, we don't know. So I take the opinion he was a believer, but whatever. Yeah, well, I mean, and then so the evidence is there. Yeah. So anyway, Fadl is riding with him. A woman comes to the Prophet ﷺ with a question. She's a young woman. She's a beautiful woman. And she approaches him and she's asking him a question. The Prophet looks at her and he sees she's not looking at him. She's not lowering her gaze. Yeah. She's looking like this. So the Prophet turns and he sees Fadl there checking each other out. So he just very nicely continues answering the question. He pushes his head behind. It's the visual stimulation, and we're going to get into that second part, was there. It was 100% there. People were attracted. These are not non-humans who just like walked around, automatons. We're just robotics. Yeah, it was robots. We're not doing anything. They had attraction. And this is why hijab, the revelation of hijab, is so important. And women always, not always, but many women say to me, many say, it's not fair because if you men, we have to cover ourselves. No, because God said so. You cover yourself. And that's one of your trials and tests, and maybe you be successful.
We're designed, that's fitra.
Yeah, and then but they get upset about that. Oh, why you designed that? Yeah,
Americans like, stop looking, you animal.
Yeah, and it is what it is. Look, men have, there's 2 things we're commanded to lower our gaze from. 1, men are very inclined towards. 1, women are very inclined towards, and both share it as well. 1 thing is lower your gaze to the opposite gender, and if you have attraction to the same gender as well, or the same sex, you lower your gaze to them. And 1 is the things of this world. And what does that mean? Someone says, oh, let's go check out the houses over here. And you're not buying a house. You're just checking out the houses. You're supposed to lower your gaze to that. Because when you start checking that out, then you come home, then you go, in the heart, now you go on Redfin and check, or whatever the other things are there.
You deal with interest.
Yeah, Zillow.
I need it. I gotta have this.
And then it increases that. Now,
so you're saying like you don't let your desires overtake you.
Exactly. And the eyes, it's the method of consumption that's really important to guard. Now, the second part about self-stimulation. There are conversations within books of scholarship that show that this was something that the tabi'een and the students of the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, upon his prayers and peace, asking these questions to the companions. And unfortunately, I don't have the information in front of me. I wish I did, and I don't have the brain to be able to cite things left and right. But there are clear narrations like this. There's comments about from the early scholars who fall in the first 3 generations. So there's a sense of understanding that this may have obviously existed, because this is a human need. Mm-hmm. A human need not to masturbate per se, but to have an intimate or sexual interaction. And some people who are unable to, then they may turn to this avenue. But the Prophet advised us. He said, O young men, Ya ma'ashar shabab, O young men, if you're able to marry. Why? Because it is a shield for you, and it's pure for you. Yep. And if you can't, then fast, because fasting controls the desires. Now, we don't fast correctly, by the way. And so as a result, our desires are not really affected as much. But if the Prophet Muhammad, upon him praise and peace, wanted us to turn to this avenue, he would have said, if you can't marry, then use this as a substitute. Yeah. But that's not the substitute given. But in our history, we do see the conversations, the questions were there, which shows that it was there.
Okay. Yeah. I know that there was a school of thought, I don't recall which one, but it said that it was permissible if it helped you abstain from an even greater sin like sexual intercourse. Like if you're about to have it with a woman, but you just go in who's not your spouse, and then you go in the bathroom and you rub one out or whatever, and then
better of the 2 evils.
Yes, and then like you
that's
lose
exactly what it is.
Yeah, you lose the desire or something.
Yeah,
and then you don't.
But people have been faced with that. I don't know if I should say who on camera. Just
Tell him.
No, I haven't.
Paul Maury.
I haven't gotten.
He is the dad.
No, I haven't gotten the scholar's permission, but you both know him. So when he was younger, he's a couple decades older than me, or older than us, for about the same age. And when he was working at a hotel, when he first arrived in America, and he's still a hand, he's very, people who have, subhanAllah, I'm forgetting the word, like an equilibrium, when they have a balance of features. What's that term called?
Symmetry.
Yeah, symmetry. They have
Facial
symmetry.
yeah.
So symmetry of features, they're very, very handsome. And so that symmetry of features definitely exists within him. So when he first came and he was working at this hotel, there's a woman who was working in the hotel with him behind the desk, and he would be in the rooms and he would be cleaning the rooms, etc. And she was very attracted to him. And he's, in his short kameez and topi and being all jovial and jolly.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day she just went to the room and she closed the door and she said, either you fulfill my desire, or I'm going to yell that you were, you can't say the word over here, that you're trying to, you're trying to force yourself on me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she's like, what do I do? So he backed up to the window, second floor, opened the window, jumped out, hurt both of his ankles, didn't break anything, alhamdulillah. It was a low second floor, like those like Motel 6s.
1.5, whatever.
Yeah. And he did that. There's another one of my teacher's teacher. He was walking, and this is a longer story. I'm going to give you part of it. Yep. That's a very interesting story. The whole story is very interesting. He was walking to class. He was a handsome individual, final year of Dora Hadith, final year of the culminating year of your studies, where you study about 50,000 prophetic traditions in the span of a year. He's walking to class, and this young woman's always noticing him. So one day she tells her housemaid, go call him and give the excuse that someone in our home is sick. So she says, come, someone's in our home sick. You look like a person of piety. Can you make dua, supplicate, or pray for him? She said, okay. So he comes over. When he comes over, the maid closes the door and leaves. And that woman comes out and she said that, look, I've been watching you daily, and if you don't fulfill my desires, I'm going to yell that you tried to assault me. So now he's stuck. He said, fine, I'll do what you say. I don't want my reputation to be ruined, but let me use the restroom. And then she said, of course. So he went to use the restroom. And subhanAllah, what he does is he takes his feces and he rubs it over himself. Yeah. And he comes out.
She's disgusted.
And he comes out and she's like, what kind of person are you? I don't feel like this. Like, leave from here. And then
he won.
Yeah. So now in both these situations, it doesn't mention in either of these stories if he wanted to or not. But
I did.
But in that situation, we find that people have gone to extremes. But if a person's only outlet is to masturbate and end that desire, that's a lower sin than the higher sin, which is to obviously fornicate.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Good. It's been pretty informative. Thanks for being here.
I apologize for